Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me on this particular episode of Jayonlife. I'm going to be talking about how accessible I found Panama City within my week here. So I'm going to be discussing the different modes of transportation that you're able to take, some of the pros and cons, and just how I found navigating the city during my time here. As you can see behind me, this is the skyline of Panama City, and it's still pretty impressive even during the day, but it's actually even better during the nighttime when all the lights are lit up. Once I'd first arrived into Panama City, the very first mode of transportation that I used was a bus. Now, unfortunately, I found the buses to be rather inaccessible. There's a turnstile that you have to get through in order to be able to actually get onto the bus. And once you're there, all of the seats are actually on a raised platform. So as with other buses, there are certain seats that are on a raised platform and those lower down for those that have disabilities, the elderly, or pregnant women. But unfortunately, in Panama, on their buses, all of the seats are raised. So for those like myself, it's actually a bit of a hassle to be able to get onto them. And I felt quite self-conscious having people watch me like, oh my goodness, like she's struggling, but I was able to do it. And after a few times on the buses, I was able to develop a particular routine so I could figure out the easiest way to be able to get onto the seats. Thankfully for me, the Panamanian people are so friendly. So whenever I needed assistance, somebody to hold my bag, help me with my crutches, or just essentially hoist me up onto the seat, they were more than willing to help. And the great thing that I noticed whenever I traveled around the city was that the Panamanian people were always so friendly. They were always ready to offer up a seat. There was none of that nonsense, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there, when people tried to avoid making eye contact with you just so they won't have to give up their seat. They would usually be out of their seats from the moment they saw me and my crutches. So that's definitely a really big plus that I noticed whenever I was traveling around the city. So the next mode of transportation that I used was the metro. And I have to tell you, the metro is an absolute dream. It's clean, it's fast, it's efficient, and most importantly, it's air conditioned. As you can tell from my attire, it's really warm here in Panama City. So it's always nice to be able to get a reprieve whenever you're in the metro. I found that unlike the rest of the city, whenever you were nearing a metro station, there would always be sloped ramps for those with wheelchairs to be able to get on. And at every metro station that I used, there was always a lift available to me. I'm not sure if this is true for all the stops on the line, but for the ones that I did use, that was absolutely correct. And even better is that although there are turnstiles to be able to get into the metro and get onto your train, there's a particular section that has accesso written over it, and this is especially for people that have special access needs, or for example those that might have very large luggage. The downside of this, unfortunately, was that you needed a specially registered card to be able to use that without assistance. So you'd have to get your card registered that you are somebody that would need this particular access all the time. Otherwise, you'd have to signal to somebody working at the station to be able to let you through. And obviously, they would help you as quickly as they could, but at peak times, you could be waiting for quite a while. So it would be better to add a little extra time just in case you will require that access section, just in case of any delays for the staff member being able to come over and assist you. As with the rest of the people in Panama, the staff in the metro stations are very helpful, and they do have a ticket machine for metro cards. That's unfortunately a little high, but I'm sure for those in wheelchairs that aren't able to reach that particular height, the staff will be more than happy to assist you and any other questions that you might have. In regards to the city itself, I actually did find it very difficult to navigate. Unless I was at a particular tourist attraction or I was near a station, then a lot of the roads are quite jagged. They're quite uneven, and there was lots of gaps in between the pavement and the road, which would make it impossible for somebody in a wheelchair to be able to navigate. And even for me, being on crutches, I had to always make sure that I was always looking where I was going, because some of these gaps were actually quite huge and enough to be able to actually slip into. An example of this was a few days ago. All the lights in the city had gone out. Unfortunately, this meant the traffic lights, the street lights, and everything else, everything electric, had just gone out in the blink of an eye, and it took quite a while for them to come back. And as I was trying to cross the street, because there was no street lights, it made it very difficult for me to be able to navigate my way from the station back to my hostel. And I even had a lovely young Panamanian guy offer to assist me in crossing the road because he could see just how dangerous it was. And because of the large gaps and not being able to see them quite as clearly, it made them even more dangerous. So for me, that was definitely one aspect that I didn't like about Panama City. The pavements aren't as straight and flat as as you would like them. And for somebody in a wheelchair, it could very seriously affect their tires, or somebody like me on crutches, then it could just lead you to tripping and potentially hurting yourself, which is certainly something you don't want thousands of miles away from home. Certain parts of the city, however, are absolutely wonderful in terms of accessibility. And one such place is the Albrook area of Panama City. And Albrook is where you can find the Albrook Metro Station, the Albrook Mall, and the Albrook Bus Station, which is where nearly all of the buses within the city go to. And it's the bus terminal that you would require to get to other parts of Panama and also to go out internationally to such places as Costa Rica, which is right next door. Albrook is one of my favorite places in the city, mainly because regardless of wherever I was going, I would always find myself back in Albrook. There's an escalator and a lift within the station itself. There's an escalator and a lift to get you from the metro station to the bus station, and then going through the mall there's ramps, lifts, escalators, and everything else there. And they also had accessible bathrooms for those that have special needs requirements, and I absolutely adore Albrook Station. And it's also the place that I had to take my bus to go to Bocas del Toro. So regardless of how many days, weeks, or months that you spend in Panama City, you will somehow find yourself back in Albrook. So those are just some of my thoughts on the accessibility of Panama City. While the accessibility isn't up to the standards of certain other countries that I've been to, or my hometown of London, I think that there are still enough things for people with special access needs to be able to see and enjoy within the city. So it's definitely a place that I would check out. But be sure to bring a lot of sunscreen. As you can see, I've tanned gloriously, and it's all thanks to the gorgeous Panamanian sun. So I'll see you guys around. Hey, this is Jay from Jayonlife. Thanks for watching my video. If you like what you've seen, and even if you don't like it, make sure to click subscribe. You can find me on different social media under Jayonlife. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Google+. Be sure to check out more of my stories on my blog, www.jayonlife.com, and I hope to see you soon.